we are going to start our audio workshop. I don't have any announcements, I'm just here. Go ahead.
Well said.
All right, hey everyone, I'm Cam. If you don't know me, I'm your webmaster. I do a lot of audio stuff, and tonight I will be giving a talk about using audio to elevate your games, which has a boring corporate title because I will be doing the same talk on Saturday for Collegiate Jam, but like boiled down more. But yeah, today is the audio workshop. But we're here to talk about video games, right? I like video games. You all like video games. But one thing that is kind of missing from video games is like audio. Like video is like art and stuff, and then games are like programming and stuff. But like they don't talk about audio. But audio is like what takes a good game to being like a great game. Like you can have a game without audio and it's fine. But like you can't be great without audio. Really important stuff. All right, that's out of the way. I'm gonna quickly go over kind of the core software applications that you use for what I consider the full suite of things that you need to do for making audio sound design for games. So first off, music is very important. I'm assuming you all know what music is. Most digital music nowadays is made in what's called a digital audio workstation, or a DAW. I have a bunch of DAWs on there. I have separated the free ones from the not free ones. I have not used much of the free ones because I just kind of committed to paying for one a while ago, which I use Ableton. I think it's sort of good. I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's great. I'm getting some thumbs down back there. You got a better option?
FL.
You're an FL simp? It's a good.
Good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
It's different workflows. It's different for what it does. I'd advise if you are thinking about actually making a purchase, just research the options and see what's good, because they're different for different things. It's a shame Jaman couldn't make it because he's the biggest FL stan I know. It's just a different workflow, and some of it is better for different kinds of music. I have a really hard time with the FL workflow, but I like the Ableton workflow. I just might move to a something that has a similar workflow but does it differently. But anyways, and Logic is another option. If you have a Mac, it's a Mac only one. It's really good on Macs because it kind of like works with that. If you live in that ecosystem, I'm sorry, but it's there. At least that's there for you. It's like the one saving grace of Macs. So yeah, DAW is kind of the main thing that you use to write music in the modern era. Most DAWs come with the ability to support VSTs and plugins. I honestly don't remember what VST stands for right now, but the important part is that it means it's its own little panel that can get added into your DAW, and it does its own things independent of what the DAW has. So there's a few synthesizers. Serum is the very famous one that costs like $100, and Vital is the free one that does almost all of the exact same things and is free. So that's the one I use. It's really good, and I found this really cool preset pack by one of my favorite SoundCloud digital fusion artists, Tankla. That's great. But yeah, Vital is cool because even if I got tired of Ableton one day and wanted to go switch to FL, I wouldn't have to learn a new synthesizer. I can just get Vital to work in FL as well because they both work through this common VST3 library. So if you're looking in whatever DAW you end up looking into first, and you see like all of the default, like the FL key, the Ableton sound table, and those look kind of confusing, and for FL key especially not particularly the best documented. There's a lot of like plugins online that are just kind of more portable across DAWs, and I like those a lot. Oh, and Sorfanzo, I didn't talk about that one. That's a plugin that I think is worth noting. So a lot of old video games use what's called sound fonts and MIDI, which is like a representation that just like stores the notes themselves, and you can just like download that from somewhere. I have a bunch of them linked that was uploaded by a friend of mine from the UNC Game Dev Club, and those are super useful to just like get like anywhere from like SNES era to like late GameCube PS2 stuff of just like that kind of very heavily sampled stuff. You can get some really cool sounds out of that. There's this little known indie game by this Toby Fox guy, Undertale, which this is a tactic that he uses almost exclusively that entire game, both of those games. are 50+% just Earthbound samples, and the rest of it is from Mario World and 64 and other various games from that era. Those are DAWs. Yeah, I'm not going too fast. There are other things that you can make music in. One tool that I use a lot is a little app called MuseScore. It's very sheet music focused. If you've read music before, it's familiar. It has kind of just more of it's more focused on being performable by a live audience or like a live group of musicians because it's literally sheet music. But it's just a view that helps me kind of imagine the music a lot more like cleanly and kind of see it all in a format that I'm used to. So a lot of times what I do for sometimes for jams, but like for side projects I'm working on especially, I will like sketch something out in MuseScore so I can get a lay of like what the chords are, what the time signature is going to be, and just because I'm something I'm faster with, I will export the MIDI data so that I get all of the notes themselves, and then I will re-import that into a DAW so that I can use all of those cool plugins I just talked about and then still have it make sense. You actually can use those plugins in MuseScore. It's just really buggy and it crashes sometimes, so I don't like to. Because MuseScore 4 is not as good as early MuseScore 4 was, because reasons. Another alternate workflow, if you're insane, is a tracker. You may have seen these in like a YouTube video of chiptune covers before. You would never believe that this is how people made video game music for like multiple tens of years, but like they did. It's kind of insane to me, but once you get it, it's really cool. But like that's how you sequence music for NES, SNES, every Sega console before the Genesis, probably Atari stuff. Like it's much closer to like for programmers who know it feels like writing in C or assembly compared to the niceties of the higher level applications. So that's also a workflow that is nice for certain, like if you're trying to make like authentic chiptune stuff, then that's your best bet because it like literally the one you pick will be what hardware spec you're actually simulating because the like, not to get too trivia-y, but like, you know, the NES has 3 sound channels, 1 sample, and then 1 drum channel versus the VRC6 chip that you can get into it has 2 more saws and 1 square and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I have, there's one of, Fami Tracker is the very famous one. And then I found online, Deflamask is like $7 or something. And it looks really robust for like making, like Sega Genesis, Ian, what's the one after that called? I always forget it. Dreamcast.
Like a Saturn.
Oh, Saturn. That's why.
Forget the Saturn.
That's why I always forget about the Saturn because it like did really poorly, right?
Yeah, but it was cool.
It was cool. That's why I forget the name of it. That's right, because the Dreamcast was the 64 equivalent. Yeah. Those are alternative workflows. Everyone likes and dislikes their own different things, and all of these music tools are a little different, and all of them are a little janky, especially the free ones. So if you're on the fence about one, just try it. And if you're on the fence between 2, just Google and see what people like and what you think will work for you. But the only way you'll find out is by trying them. Yeah.
So a question with MuseScore. So if you were to export and use one of those plugins, does it kind of make the sound a bit more like synth, or does it still kind of like retain like if you have like an orchestral piece, like does it still kind of sound like it would?
So MuseScore, just to make sure I'm being like perfectly clear,
Yeah.
when you export from MuseScore, like you hit export to MP3, it will like literally render all of the sounds as you hear them in the playback, right?
Okay.
But if I export to MIDI, it will export the actual, all of the notes on the page. So like for this song right here, it will say like, all right, on beat 1, there's an E, and then on the ANDA one, there's a C, and then on the ANDA one, there's the first one was an A, and that's a C. I actually can't read. It literally will export just like note for note what's happening, so you could just paste it into another DAW.
Okay. And then at that point, I have to like re-choose the instrument.
Yeah, I would re-choose the instrument. So like usually my default process for sketching things out is I have like 3 or 4 piano tracks and a drum set, just because it's kind of for the style of music I write, which is like kind of rock adjacent harmonic minor stuff is what I'm writing a lot of for this game I'm working on now, which I have this isn't my laptop. I would have a sticker of my guy if it was my laptop. But Yeah, I usually use that to like sketch stuff out, just like with the piano sound font, because like I'm not worried about how it actually sounds together. But then when I go to export, I'm like, okay, the bass is going to be like a bass synthesizer or a bass saw wave or a slap bass sample from like an N64 game. Yeah, the Mario 64 one's great. Or like, you know, any number of things of like, what do I want this to actually like sound like? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So, are there any of the free ones? Sorry.
No, you're. I love questions. Please ask me questions.
So, which one would you like? I'm kind of like trying to go for like kind of like your Hollow Knight or like your like that sort of like your orchestral kind of soundtrack. Are there any of the free ones that can do that, or would that be like I have to probably start going into the premiums for that?
So basically, none of the tools are inherently limited in the amount of sounds that they can create. It's just what kind of presets do you have access to. So if we're talking Hollow Knight specifically, that means let's just say we're talking Hollow Knight, not Silk Song for a moment, because Silk Song's all live and we don't have the budget for that. So it means lots of slow strings, lots of fast strings, maybe a couple woodwind instruments, maybe a couple sampled brasses for big moments, and then a bunch of like kind of assorted drum hits. If you're going to use any of these DAWs on the left, they will have some of those samples. Ableton comes with a string sample. Is it the best string sample? No. Honestly, I think MuseScore's strings library right now is better, the free one. But like the paid one, that is a recording of the Berlin Philharmonic, that one's going to be a little bit better than both of them, actually. So it really just depends on where can you find the instrument libraries for the things you're needing. Some of the paid versions of the DAWs come with more sounds. Like Ableton has 3 tiers. It's got a $150 one, it's got a $400 one, it's got an $800 one. The $800 one is literally just the $400 one, but it comes with like another 33 gigabytes of sound library, which is great if you know how to sift through that and you know what you want. But you can also like find those sounds in other places. This is kind of a long answer because it's kind of a hard question.
No, yeah.
But it's a good question to ask. Sometimes you just kind of have to hunt down sound sources, and I gave some good sources of sounds for like making more like retro style gaming music, but you just kind of got to know the right places. And while the VGDC does not officially condone piracy in any kind, a lot of this stuff is just available if you can find it on the right sites, like especially of like nicer sound font libraries. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. But yeah, feel free to ask me anything. Otherwise I will go through the slide deck too fast. But that's basically kind of all the tools that you can use to make music. Actually writing music is a whole other story that I don't have time to get into, but there's a lot more for that online. Ian.
And would a lot of these tools have like a stuff in place for like if you wanted to import your own samples, like you wanted to sample like a drum thing from like a existing song?
Yeah, so most of the benefit of a DAW is that it can handle live audio, like an audio file, your MP3s, your AUGs, your wow, that's the guy. I was like, why am I forgetting the easy one? And also MIDI, which is kind of like, if you see in this image, can you see the mouse on there? Yeah. You see like all the little notes on the keyboard of this song I wrote? I think this is I don't remember what I wrote this for. Yeah, I don't remember what I wrote this for. But like that's MIDI of just like, these are the notes on the page when they happen. A DAW, the main premise of the DAW is that it can use both. So like a lot of times in songs, I'll have like my keys, guitars and stuff in MIDI, and then I'll be like, dang, this song needs a gong for whatever reason. Can I find a really good song in the Ableton sound library right now? No. Let me go find a royalty-free one. Let me port it in. Let me just drop the file right there, and then I just have the gong like the raw audio. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, that's it for music for now. Sound effects, the next big topic. Audacity. Who here has heard of Audacity? Who here has Audacity on their computer already? Great. Audacity is the MS Paint of the audio world. It is the simplest, cleanest, fastest tool to edit audio in any capacity. Is it nearly as capable as a DAW? No, not even like remotely close. Once the whole Tantacruel has bought it and is making it more UI friendly, has changed that a little bit because it has like a built-in tempo system now, but it's annoying and I don't like it. But what's important about Audacity is that it can do simple things really quick, like taking an audio piece and trimming it to the correct size, which, you know, if you recorded a lot of takes of a sound effect, you'll need to splice them all up into different pieces. It's really good at just taking its sound and then making it kind of quieter, or taking sound and then adding a fade out to the end. A lot of this really quick processing stuff, number one tool. Yeah, it's easy to record into. I don't personally have a ton of tips on how to record stuff because that's the side I'm less experienced on. But right now we live in the future, and your phone microphone is actually better than you think it is. And the voice memos app on your phone is actually pretty cool. And if you have an Android, there's probably the same one. Or you could just shoot a video and then strip it to an MP3 with a computer converter, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, Audacity is great. I'm so happy that you all know about the joys of Audacity. As far as making sound effects goes, there's plenty of resources online to find out how to do your own Foley generation, which Foley, F-O-L-E-Y, is the word for just like making sounds for stuff. So like, you know, you got like a pile of leaves that you kind of like punch repeatedly to simulate something like falling through stuff, or like my favorite one is like you're trying to like make footsteps for like someone in armor, or like of like someone carrying a lot of stuff and it's just a bunch of forks in like a Tupperware bin. You just shake it. There's lots of, you can definitely find that. That's just as true for games as it is for movies. But for specifically creating, synthesizing sound effects, BFXR and Chiptone are both super good resources for just creating 8-bit, 16-bit style sounds. They kind of just have a few knobs and a few presets that can like you just make really generic, authentic sounding like 8-bit sound effects. They're really easy to use, and they're more versatile than you really think they are. Yeah, they're pretty cool. And also, you can just use a DAW. If you have a synthesizer that you like, and you like the kind of sounds it makes, and you want to use it to make sound effects instead, just do it in your DAW. My suggestion is that you just have one project for all of your sound effects, or all sound effects that relate to the same things. That way, if you change something about how that synth sounds, you can re-export them all from one place, instead of having to just like, this is a full Ableton project that I have for like a 2-second sound effect. And every time I want to change it, I need to open that 1 gigabyte file, and then I need to save and close it, but I don't want to delete it in case I want to change it later. You know, it's just tricky. So like having one file that is kind of has all your sound effects in it, you make it all to one track, or you tell it to export 2 different clips from your DAW, which is a little annoying to set up, but super worth it. That is also super cool. Stock asset libraries are really, really cool. Sometimes it feels wrong to rely on stock asset libraries, but for audio especially, if you were to make a game like, I don't know, Fortnite. Sorry, I saw Anthony's head go down. I needed to wake him up. If you were to make a game called Fortnite, where exactly would you go about recording all of those live gunshot sounds?
I done the golf cart.
What's that?
They got a real golf cart and recorded at Epic HQ.
They used a golf cart?
Yeah, you can go to a video behind the scenes. We're not golf cart sound effects.
All right, we'll do that later.
Yeah.
Should we update right now? Let's not update right now. What if we didn't update right now? I think now's a bad time. But anyways, even if you're trying to do shit like pop a balloon and pitch it down until it sounds like a gunshot firing, take my word for it, it doesn't really work. So sometimes there are sounds that you need to find stock assets for. Lots of free places online. Also lots of free YouTube videos that are just, here is a Colt 1911 firing until its mag is empty. And here's the same video, but it's really loud. And don't get that one, get the first one. But then you can download the whole video and then open it in Audacity, or well, use a thing to convert it to an MP3. Open it in Audacity, trim down to just the one bullet, and then you have it. Hooray! Easy enough. Any questions on general sound effect tools? Sweet. All right. Last step for tools, audio middleware. What's audio middleware? Well, I'm glad you asked. It is like, it's kind of hard to explain all at once, but it's basically something closer to a DAW that like sticks its fingers right inside your game engine, so that you actually can control music parameters directly with the programming language of your choice, probably C# or C++ or Godot script. They are really powerful. They are really cool. They are kind of a pain to set up, but it's usually worth it once you do because it gives you a lot more control over stuff like reverb zones and the ability to like change songs on the fly. If you have a song that would have like different segments depending on where you are in a level, this is how you would do it because everything else, it kind of solves the low latency math that would be really annoying to write in C++ kind of manually. Yeah, they're really cool. What's a good one? Like new Mario Kart World has a bunch of songs that like they have multiple endings that when you get to the level, it just plays whichever one is closest. And then it always has a good point to end off at. Nintendo does everything proprietary, but it's in a software like one of these. But not exactly one of these. There's two big ones in industry, Fmod and WWise. Fmod is free, and WWise is not free. Do with that information what you will on which one I personally use. But they both are, WWise has a demo that you can try, and both of them are just kind of like, you need to credit us until you make however much. It's kind of the same as with your engine. These kind of do have a bit of a high learning curve, but they are ultimately worth it for like a game trying to accomplish more audio and visual effects that are kind of more tied together, or audio that's more responsive to the player, or blah, 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 blah. All these kinds of things that you can use to make audio more dynamic and interactive. And yeah, it's audio that changes more regarding player input and in-game events. Yeah. Oh, right. The Celeste Fmod project. So Celeste is audio that's built in Fmod, and the entire project for it is like absolutely free. You can literally just download the entire source file for this project. It's great. It has like literally all of the raw files for the entire game. If you want to learn Fmod, go look through it. It's actually really cool. Also, go play Celeste. It's great. Yeah. So those are all the tools we got. Now, I'm kind of going to go through and talk about things that you would want to think about when you are adding audio to a game. What are kind of the main points and uses of how can I use audio to elevate my game? Also, is everybody having a good time? We all following along? We're doing good? Yeah. I know we're in that part of the semester right now, so it's a little like in here. But, yeah. Please ask questions. I'm happy to answer them. All right. So one of the easiest concepts that is important to think about is whether or not music is diegetic or non-diegetic. If you've not heard this word before, it's really easy. If it's diegetic, that means the people in the game also are aware that music is happening. And if it's not diegetic, then that means it's music just for us here on the outside. The easiest example is like the radio in GTA 5 or any equivalent shooter game. I'm certain. Was that? Yeah, Fortnite. Very good, Anthony. So like in Fortnite, the car radio is diegetic, but like the main menu music, not diegetic. But like whenever you emote in Fortnite, that music is diegetic because they're dancing to the emote and then other players can hear it. Wow, really not that hard. But it is an important thing to think about when it's just like, how am I using music in this case? Any game where you play an instrument as a game mechanic, Ocarina of Time comes to mind, Silk Song, anything else that, I can't think of any others right now, but I'm certain you all have seen something like this before, right? There's a one, what am I thinking of? Fortnite. Thanks, front row. Glad they're awake. But yeah, pretty simple stuff, just kind of an important term to know. Related question is kind of the bigger point here is what purpose does the music serve in the game? In Fortnite, the music serves to accompany the emote, to make it more exciting, to make it more interesting. Sometimes it just serves to be a pop culture reference for players to recognize and be like, I know this song. Sometimes music is meant to set the tone of a game. This is true for like literally any horror game. But it also is true for, like even a game like Candy Crush, having this kind of silly, fun backing soundtrack to keep that game is very light. It's not meant to, you're not meant to really get immersed in the story of Candy Crush. You're meant to pick it up, play 2 levels, and then put it down again. So even thinking about like what is kind of the point of the music can help you compose it. They compose something light and easy to listen to because it's a light and easy to play game. Ambiance, what does the music do to serve the environment of the game? It kind of relates to tone, but it's more nuanced of just like how does the music make you feel and how does that change how you interact with the game? Is the music reactive to the player's actions and reactive to in-game properties? The short word for this is dynamic. That's why it's one of the only 2 I can think of earlier. A lot of games are doing this nowadays, mostly because some ways of doing it are easier than others, and you can get away with very little effort, like having multiple tracks of the same thing, and like multiple tracks of the same length for the same song, and then you fade in and out the different layers to change how stuff happens. There's a really good Scruffy video about, which if you've not heard of Scruffy, he's a really great YouTuber with like really well-styled videos about music in games, audio in games, and like 3D modeling workflows of all things. They're very multi-talented. Anyways, there's a really good breakdown of how like Pikmin 3 has 4 layers of music in their games. One that is the main one that is when Pikmin are working, one that is when you are in combat, and one that replaces all of that when you're close to sunset. And Pikmin 4 has a track for every enemy in the game and plays whenever that enemy is on screen. And if that sounds ridiculous, it is. I don't understand how that game shipped at all. But they did it, and there is that much sound in the game. And that video just goes into great detail of like, what is it like to construct kind of the sound engine that determines how much or how little audio content you actually have to supply. In regards to these layers, the kinds of things that you can change are like having a loud layer and a soft layer, but not just like loudness in terms of literal volume in the track. Loudness could be, we have this melody played on string. We have this melody played on oboe and clarinet. We have this melody played by 18 million trumpets, right? Those are all very different levels of intensity. Hollow Knight does a great job of this. I'm going to use Hollow Knight as an example a lot. But Hollow Knight does a really good job of this, of like having, like City of Tears is really good. They have the full choir string section that plays whenever you're outside, and then whenever you're inside, it kind of fades down a little bit. The most of the choir stuff is down to just the solo singing voice, and then whenever you're kind of in the upper works of the area, even that fades out, and it's just kind of the backing track to it. I'm certain there are other examples. I'm certain you can think of another example right now. Fast and slow. I say fast and slow. Really, I mean rhythmic kind of fast and slow. It's more of an intensity thing. Like if you have like a melody and a bass line that's in quarter notes, and you fade in like a drum beat that kind of like puts in the 8th note subdivision, or like has like a different kind of groove underneath it, it can change the rhythmic feel of the song a lot. I can only think of Hollow Knight as an example right now, but I know there are other games that do this. Yes, Anthony, is it Fortnite?
Yeah.
I actually would fight you on this. Where does it do this in Fortnite?
Probably somewhere.
Probably somewhere. All right. Can anybody beat probably somewhere in a game? Does anyone have more than 60% confidence that they think they've ever seen this before? Damn. All right. Anthony
I
wins.
sent you every Fortnite sound effect. You want to go through that?
Is that why I just felt my phone buzz?
Yeah.
Awesome.
We tanks.
We tanks. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We tanks. That's excellent.
Oh, yeah.
That's absolutely excellent.
Every single enemy has its own track.
It's really cool. There's a really good 10-minute Scruffy video about it. I don't know, guys. I'm just saying. Yeah, I should have done more example researching. That's on me. But it's the example from Hollow Knight is like this definitely happens in more game. I have studied the soundtrack of Hollow Knight. I've listened to that whole album like probably 9 to 10 times. It's just the City of Tears theme has, as an example, like it's this kind of slow quarter note duple feel song, but the action track that plays in all the arenas is like a 12/8 feel. And so you notice it, there's drums that are 12/8, there's these more staccato strings that fade in, but it's all still the same chord changes and it's all still the same length of the song. So you don't actually have to start, they use Fmod. They don't actually have to start a different Fmod event, they just have to say, hey, turn on the layer that fades these things in, and then it does. Cool. Ambience, I alluded to briefly earlier, but ambience is kind of just a big long track that has environmental noises in it. It's really hard to describe until you've kind of heard it. I have an image of like an awesome field in a meadow. Ambience is like the wind blowing through the field. It's kind of like the birds chirping in the background. It's things that doesn't necessarily have an in-game correlate, like an in-game thing that it's tied to, but it helps make the environment feel more full anyways. Yes, Anthony?
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild's a great example. Breath of the Wild has done this. Any game that's set in nature kind of has to have good ambience, but like even then, other games have ambience. Right now, we're in this room that just kind of has me talking in it. But if we all kind of just like sit still for a moment, you can hear that this is a fan that's on. You can hear people kind of clicking away at their computers. There's a fan back there. There's a drum line outside. White line's still practicing. God, it's late. There's people in the other class. It's things like that. It's just like the static noise in the room that really makes an environment feel really good. I worked on a game called VR Dig Dug this one time, and I recorded just pure silence in one of the tunnels out there at like 11 p.m. at night, and then I put it through a ton of reverb and engine, and then got it to loop, and it genuinely does just like what does being in a cave sound like? Well, yeah, it's a lot of reverb, but also there's all these really small sounds that then get put into the reverb, pedals falling, bugs moving, that just gives it this, it's the sound of an empty room. And it's something that for a jam scale game is probably never gonna happen. But for a long-term game, can really make or break your game. Again, for all nature games, totally required, but like, yeah, that's a good one. Like we're in a building right now doing building stuff. Stanley Parable, all over that game. Just the static hum of machines and office spaces, and that makes that game have just such this like really precise just corporate feel to it. Like you know what that environment is because you can feel it. It goes unnoticed, but it does a lot of heavy lifting. Any questions on this slide? Yes, Anthony. Subnautica, that's a great example. Shut up. I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. All right, so oh, Ian, you got one?
Well, you guys come to the book club, Portal.
Yeah, Portal's another great example.
Great ambience. I mean, who knows what's going on in the facility?
The first half of Portal has, I guess, like the first like very large part of Portal has like kind of just this like not much to it from my memory, but like the kind of escape segment, yeah, cogs, machinery. There's a Hollow Knight adjacent sequel game that has like a really good example of this that I'm not going to talk about for the good of all the spoiler-free people in this room, but it's really peak, trust me. All right. How present is the music in the player's ear? That might sound like kind of a weird question, but I think that's the best way I can word it. So, like, obviously, different sounds have different, like, literal actual volumes, right? But there's also, like, just intensity. It's kind of harder to describe. If I'm just talking to you at this volume, it's fine, but, like, if I'm clapping at that volume, it's more intense. It's a single moment where it's happening, but it's not as intense if I just sat here and clapped over me talking. You can't really hear me talking because I'm clapping the whole time, right? Like, even if I am talking at the same volume, I'm clapping. The clapping is much more present in your mind because that's just how audio works. It's consistent, it has a pulse to it. Maybe it's not a really good example, but you like get what I'm saying. This is especially true in games because of just how, and I'll get into this more later, but like for sound effects especially, it's really important that actions in game that have a tiered importance of like how much you need to see them also have sound effects that match up how much you need to hear them. And I will get into this a lot more later, but a good example I just thought of is like Mario Kart. In Mario Kart, you could get hit by items a lot. And if the game detects a red shell coming towards you, it'll put the red shell coming soon and it'll go like little beep, 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 because you have one summing, right? Do we know what I'm talking about? Yeah. If a blue shell is coming at you, that beeping is a different, much louder beeping because a blue shell carries much more importance than a red shell. A red shell will stop you for like 2 or 3 seconds, and a blue shell will stop you for like 4 or 5 or whatever those numbers are. It conveys a different level of importance. And when the blue shell actually hits you, like, it doesn't matter if you use the Wii one or the 8 one or the World one, it's got this big fancy swirly animation, then it hits the ground, there's this huge explosion, and all of those sounds are like super memorable to match that intensity. That's what I mean when I say how present is sound effects or something. Yeah.
It also made me remember about how if you're struck by like lightning or the other thing, I forgot what it's called, it plays like a different track that makes you feel sad. I don't know.
Yeah, like from Weed, like the little storm cloud guy.
Yeah.
That's a great use of using music to depict in-game actions. So they have a different layer. Well, okay, I think Mario Kart Wii does it live. Someone will correct me on this later, but
In Mario Kart Wii, if one person is drunk, then it'll play the different music.
for everyone on that like physical console, but not if you're online. Yeah, it either is stored as a different layer or it's just warping the music itself as it happens. It's probably doing it live because it is procedural. But that's a great example of like the lightning sound effects is pretty loud and it kind of affects the music throughout the level. And the lightning visual effect is there's this giant bolt of lightning and the whole screen goes dark for a second and it has a big impact on gameplay. So both the audio and the visuals come together to tell that this is a big important thing that is happening. Yeah, I will get more into this whole dance later. That's kind of the big picture on this slide deck. But yeah, literal volume of sounds, range and variance of the dynamics in the sound. Like the clapping example, it's kind of just a persistent loud noise. It's hard to hear, but it's easy to hear. But like, it doesn't change. Sometimes sound effects do a better job, and music in general does a better job of not getting in the way if it. Yeah, let me go back and talk about music. Like if the music, all of it is kind of quiet, but then the music has loud parts and quiet parts. If you make the loud parts quiet, then the quiet parts kind of like aren't really there anymore. You can't even really hear them. So if you're gonna have music that is quieter, the quiet parts have to not be that quiet because it's all gonna get quieted down later. Rhythmic intensity tempo. I talked about that a little bit on the previous slide of just like how present is the song in your mind. There's plenty of examples in many, many games of there is a song, it has no drums in it, it's kind of just this pretty fun song, it kind of sounds cool and good, and then an enemy enters on screen, then you hear drums of some variety come in. Drum kit, that kind of tribal drums, bongo, like adding percussion to a thing to make it more intense. Very intuitive. Ian?
Would you include panning in this kind of subject?
Yeah, I would include panning. I think like the easiest way to think about panning is it like one. Well, for game music, you usually kind of want it just mono, unless it is diegetic, like it's coming from a radio in game,
Yeah, exactly.
like a Fallout or like a game with a radio in it. Portal, yeah,
Yeah, Portal.
famously. But like if you had more of like an immersive game or a dream sequence, and you have different sounds going to different ears. Based off of like, we want this layer on this side, we want this layer on this side. That is intensity. It is more present. Things that are on one side or the other are not nearly as intense as the things that are on both. It's a good question, thank you. Frequency range, just is it high, is it low? A lot of really easy things of just like, you know, this sounds too kind of spiky or tinny or annoying, and you throw a low pass on it, and then you're like, it's got that like mellow sound to it. It's intensity. And one thing that's, as I'm getting into, one thing that's important in intensity is like leaving room for your sound effects. A lot of times when you make video game music, when you listen to video game music for like AAA games, it doesn't sound the same when you listen to it illegally on YouTube as it does when it's in game, because your brain is so used to all of that kind of background noise. Like not even like the big sound effects, but like just like the ambiance and just kind of like the feel of the game feel missing. I noticed this a lot the most with Mario Kart 8 music. That game's music is all specifically mixed to leave a nice big gap between 250 and 500 hertz where all of the engine and tire noise for that game sits. And you're used to hearing it there. Because if you didn't hear it, then you want to hear the cars in the car game. You want when when it goes 3, 2, 1, like you want to hear the engine start. It's a racing game. So that's something you have to consider when you're making these kinds of games. It also kind of keeps a little bit of the higher range for all of the item noises, both the using of it and the item roulette, in Mario Kart, of like kind of a famously loud and present for a good amount of time sound. They want you to hear that because it's an arcadey game. Yeah, something to think about. When does music come more present? When does music let ambience do more of the work? All right, now I'm going to talk about Subnautica. Subnautica is a really, really good example of this. It has kind of these really big stingers that play in specific moments when you discover new stuff in certain places, the wrecked ship, Ghost Leviathan, whatever. And that's when the music gets bigger to match the fact that the game gets bigger. But like, it's definitely not like rhythmic or like, it's not music you dance to. It's music that simply conveys the intensity of what's going on. And a lot of Subnautica is just kind of spent swimming around in the sea moth. And when you're just swimming around in the sea moth, all you can hear is the sound of water whooshing by and the sound of Ghost Leviathan, and then you turn up and you go to the surface and, you know. But Subnautica lets its ambience do a lot of work. It's meant to be a very lonely, frightening game about exploring the ocean, and 80% of gameplay consists of you hearing the ocean. Brilliant use of that. That's a really good one. All right, I kind of skipped ahead to this Mario Kart example because I was already talking about Mario Kart. But ducking is a practice where you take the volume of your sound effect, and then while the sound effect is playing, you subtract that from the volume of the music. And you can tweak how exactly those are scaled, but basically, it lets your sound effects just kind of have a little bit of control over the music for a moment, just to make it heard. I went to a talk at GDC 2 years ago that was by Baldur's Gate people, and they gave the easiest example ever, which is when you cast Fireball, you want to hear the real kind of part of the fireball. So they kind of turn down the low end of the music so that you can really get the full impact of, you know, you can really kind of feel it with the bass in that. That's the easy one, but this is true of every shooter game with a soundtrack. You want to be able to hear gunshots over the music. It just gives it gives these sounds, in real life when you aren't listening to music all the time, these sound effects suddenly get your interest. You hear them and you look at them. You can't ignore them very well at all. You can't not notice when a sound happens in real life. And this ducking and side chaining, which is the more music term for it, is really a good tool to just help make sound effects cut through the mix a little bit more. And it's something that you can do in Fmod pretty much for free. You just need to configure it right. It's pretty cool. And it'll do it procedurally. So that way, when any time a sound effects plays, you can control how much things respond in response to it with a sidechain. Cool. All right, any questions? Yeah. All right. We're doing good. What time is it? 8:09. I should. I forgot to fill this up. Right. Anyways, sound effects. All right, sound effects can also be diegetic or non-diegetic. That's great. It's easy enough to talk about for music, but for sound effects, it's way more important. UI sounds, not diegetic. Characters don't hear about that. A lot of like anything that's a weapon noise probably is diegetic. Oh,
Got you go.
Ah, thanks, Parker. That's a good leader right there. It's not that way, it's the other way. All right, there they go. It is a circle, but anyways, so diegetic, non-diegetic, a lot more important for sound effects. Is the jump noise in Mario diegetic? You know, like when he sits there and he goes, don, don, like, does Mario actually hear every time he does that? No, probably not. But in, say, any of the new Marios, when he kind of is like, new being Mario 64, whenever Mario talks when he's jumping with the yip, whoop, wahoo, yippee, wahoo, you know, Mario. You know, you guys know Mario, right? You've heard of him? It's really great. You should check him out. Yeah, whenever Mario is doing his Charles Martinet noises, that's diegetic. Obviously, everything in game can hear him. Thank you, Parker. Here, let me do my totally sponsored water drinking. No, I got a sticker for the Collegiate Game Jam. That's tomorrow.
Guys, tomorrow. We're jamming.
Thank you, Parker. But yeah, so diegetic, non-diegetic, a lot more important to think about. Really easy to think about, but once again, we asked this question for a better reason. Realistic or stylized sound effects. Sound effects are really, really important for conveying like kind of the tone of a game. Oh wow, I actually have gotten this far without talking about Celeste this much. That's great. So in Celeste, is a really good game by the way. There are lots of sound effects in that game that you can go explore on the FMod project right now. But like, here's the big picture. Every time you like break a wall or you grab onto something and it falls and it's a rock falling, that's a pretty realistic sound effect. The wood breaking sounds in that game, pretty realistic. At the same time, I just jumped on my purple demon twin sibling from the mirror dimension and she shoots me into the sky and it goes, right? That's not a real thing, but you can use a sound effect to illustrate what it would be like past the however many frames that Pedro made for it. It's really useful to like help make your animation convey more stuff and just kind of squeeze more juice and detail out of it. Oh, I said the word, I spoiled it. It's juice, guys. Juice is really cool. We're gonna talk a lot about juice. Yeah, Ian.
Is it common to use the Doppler effect for realism?
Yeah. So most game engines will have Doppler stuff baked into it. And Fmod, you just put a sound spatializer on stuff and then it will do it if you put the listener in the right place. For those who have been lucky enough to not take a physics class at this university, the Doppler effect is when an audio source, or at least in the audio context, you may have heard it in the light redshifting context, when an audio source is approaching you, it will be getting higher pitched. And when an audio source is going away from you, it'll be getting lower pitched. That's why cars sound like it goes up as it gets closer to you and it goes back down as it goes away. How's that car imitation? Was that good car imitation? All right, cool. Sweet.
When Mario Kart Wii had really bad Doppler effects. It sounds funny, but like they didn't get it right. The math must be hard.
So I actually will make a really good point of what Ian said. Ian said that Mario Kart Wii has a really bad Doppler effect, and I would argue that. I would say Mario Kart Wii has a really inaccurate to real life Doppler effect. Yeah. It's very stylized. Yeah. It's not realistic.
I don't know if that's what they meant to do, but it sounds funny.
I think it is. I think they did that on purpose. That game is very well crafted, and obviously it sold bajillions. Yeah. So, and I'm not making fun of you for this, Ian, but it's a good example of like, it's an intentionally less realistic decision. They're exaggerating how much Doppler effect would happen for the purpose of conveying how frustrated a player would feel when they see someone speeding past them. Like, it's really
true. You hear those character voice lines and they sound all garbled. It's like, oh, it makes that it makes that chain of like the green shells in you like over and over again. It makes that like way more like.
Yeah, it's a deliberate choice to make the player really feel the weight of getting passed by someone going that quickly. Really good example. Very stylized. Cartoonish sounds can be just as effective as normal sounds. I think the Smash Ultimate footstool is the best example in recent history. For those of you who have not played Smash Ultimate, if you jump on a guy, it looks like this. That's Wario. He doesn't usually look like that. And it plays this little kind of sound effects. Like, that sounds like almost identical to like a Goomba Stomp from like Mario World. Like, that's how kind of goofy it is. But it's a really funny action because you take the character model and you just turn the Y scale down in half, and it's meant to be, how do we telegraph that someone got stepped on as much as possible with this really hard to ignore sound effect coupled with this really hard to ignore visual effect. Oh, I'm tipping my whole hand, guys. This juice talk is not going to matter after I get through this. But if you've not gotten it yet, using the audio to complement the visuals in a way that conveys the gameplay, it's kind of really important. We're going to get to that. How does sound used enhance user experience and have more juice? Okay, I guess I'm talking about juice now. But yeah, it lets you know what happens more on screen using a sound effect that is not necessarily realistic, but can get attention more easily. Like any time in a video game you get an item and it plays a jingle of some sorts, that's to tell you that you got an item. Sometimes, like if Hollow Knight flashes that item in the corner of the screen with the sound, that's more of a UI sound. But if it like just telling you that you got stuff and that your actions impact the world with sound, is cool and important. Haptics. Haptics are really cool. I like haptics. They are kind of controller only. If anyone knows about a haptic keyboard, please tell me. That sounds funny. And if anyone knows about a haptic mouse, please tell me. That sounds really annoying to use because it kind of defeats the purpose. Oh, Sterling's got something.
A good example of a haptic keyboard, it might not be what you're thinking, but like some people have this weird setting on their phone where like you click it and you can feel it vibrate.
All right,
Like,
that's true. So I would. That is a funny example for this specifically, but it is actually a really good example for just the point of haptics anyways. Haptics are just like what sound effects are to help tell the user, and not even the player in this case, the user, that what they are doing is doing stuff. If you're using a real keyboard, you press the mechanical keyboard and you feel the key go down. Like if I did it, I can feel the key go down. And a haptic on a phone, when you do that, is meant to help tell you as you're holding your phone that you are actually typing and that the inputs are actually going through to mimic the feeling of a real keyboard. That's a really good example, thank you. But does it count as a haptic keyboard for the purpose of gaming? Probably not. But that's a very good point. I like that example because it goes past just gaming. It's just good user feedback, and as a web dev of sorts, I like good UX. Fun trivia fact about haptics: haptic data, like when you save it to your game and then your game sends it to your controller, it's literally just a WAV, because it's literally telling a thing to vibrate at a frequency for a fixed amount of time, which is what music is. Music is just vibrations for time. They're all just WAVs. It's really funny. If you play them, they're all just kind of like tones at 200 and 500 hertz, but they are audio. Ian.
I think there's a thing with like the Switch controllers where if you put them down, it's able to kind of make like a little tune or something.
Yeah.
On the right surfaces.
Yeah. Ian or Anthony.
On the new Switch 2 controllers, a lot of games have like, so like the buttons, like not the other buttons, you know, but like they'll line up the haptics with the button presses to make them more emphasis on like every button press.
Yeah, same thing as the phone keyboard. Using haptics to do good feedback, like having haptics, and especially like any game with swords and parrying in it. I played a lot of Nine Souls like earlier this year, and the Switch controller hookup for Steam didn't have haptics, and I don't know if other controllers did, but as a designer, I noticed them missing because that game is really good VFX for parrying, and they're very loud, and they feel very impactful because you're literally like it's this giant sword swipe that you kind of just, and it doesn't hurt you at all because it's the gameplay. But feeling that when it happens is really important. There's a lot I could talk about haptics. Unfortunately, it's very much a peripheral thing, and it's a thing that requires a lot of care to get to work on all systems. But if you pick an engine and pick a controller type, should be good. Console's a lot easier for this. I don't know what the Switch 2's haptic spec is yet, but it's not good.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's got to be better than the last one.
Well, it's got to be better than the last one. The question is it better than PS5? The PS5
Yeah.
has such good haptic support that,
Even the triggers, right?
yeah, it has a couple of just like normal haptic generators, which are basically just, it's this big rotating thing with the weight on one side, and you spin it, and it does this. But it actually has two haptic sensors in both of the arms of the controller that lets it be a lot more precise. And they're actually just speakers. They're literally just speakers. It's like honestly kind of funny the way that like they can get a lot more precise control with how it vibrates because they are literally speakers that just have cones small enough to not actually make any noise unless you put them on a table. Yeah. Haptic is very closely tied to audio because they kind of have the same programmatic programmatic needs. Like visual stuff needs to get updated 30, 60, however many times a second. And if you did not know, most audio updates, your speaker receives an update from your game or your music or whatever 44,100 times a second, which is more than 60 by like at least like 12 or 13, I think. But there's buffers and all that. But they use a lot of the same systems. They need to be called when they happen. They need to be put in a buffer so that your CPU doesn't actually have to think about it that often. Very closely tied. Everyone I've ever met in haptics, which is like 7 people, and I met 4 of them on one day at GDC. They all were audio designers and musicians first. It's a very related field. Did I actually talk about stuff that I meant to talk about? Yeah. Same feedback. Things that have more action in game should have more haptic feedback. Stronger stuff for stronger things. If I hit a guy with a sword, which has more haptic feedback? Hitting a guy with a sword or hitting another sword with a sword? Hitting more sword with a sword, because it's this big kind of clash. There's a bind. Swords are harder than people. Otherwise, they wouldn't work to cut people. That's kind of all right. I'm getting off topic. Dialogue. Little small bonus notes. I'm not really a dialogue expert. I'll be very transparent about that. But from what I can observe from AAA games and how they use it, is that there's a lot of ways to go right with dialogue, and there's a lot of ways to go wrong with dialogue. Who has ever played a game that has voice lines in it that trigger when you do specific actions, and then you do that action like the entire video game, and you're sick of hearing this voice line? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? What is this voice line for you, Anthony? AI Darth Vader. That's right, from Fortnite. That's crazy. You got one?
Skyrim.
Yeah, Skyrim's a great example. Ian?
I'll say a case of the opposite being true is a lot of fighting games. A lot of the time they find a way to make every time you do that, special input for the Shoryuken. It feels good every time. You always pick the same character.
Right, but it's about how often a sound gets used and how unique the line is. Like if it's a special thing if it's a unique case thing that has a very unique sounding dialogue line, then that matches. But if it's picking up an item and it has an item, and you have to hear that every time you pick up an item, hi, I'm a Xenoblade fan, then it sucks. Ben, you got one?
Luckily you can turn this off, but in World of Warcraft, every time you try to use an ability and it's on cooldown, your guy would be like, I can't use this yet. And it does it every time. And
Yeah, right?
You have to spam the buttons a lot, so usually it happens a lot, but you can turn it off.
Does it restart the audio clip every time you spam the button?
It doesn't like clip into itself or anything, but it's just, it'll keep doing it.
Anybody else have ones of those they want to share? It's all good. I saw more hands than that, but okay. Anyways, we all know this feeling, right? Like, it's just, if you have a dialogue that's in your game that's meant to make your characters feel more lively, more familiar, it kind of loses that effect if that line plays all the time. So if you're going to have them say something on something happens all the time, you want like 5 or more takes of it so that you can have a bunch of different things for you have a bunch of different takes that you can use for the same in-game event. Like Xenoblade 3 especially has some funny ones of just like, if I have to hear Senna say I'm the girl with the gall one more time, because it's literally her only end battle dialogue, and there's a 16% chance you say it, and you get in and out of battle pretty quickly in later areas if you're over leveled. Yeah?
Xenoblade 2 has one section
Yeah.
with one enemy.
Yep. Two's way worse.
That was
I already know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just happens like 10 times over. One enemy that should be a single enemy, but there's a swarm of him.
Think you can take me?
Yeah.
Think you can take me?
You're done. Yeah, no. That's we do enough Xenoblade 2 dunking around here that I wanted to spare it the limelight, but there's a reason that got fixed in the day 2 patch. It's just like, ugh, it's a lot. Edgar?
You ever fought against Dorothea in Xenoblade 1? Did you just...
Yeah. The late game boss from that game, they fixed more of it in 3, but it's just like, enemy boss has 2 voice lines for the attack she kind of spams the entire second phase of the fight. You hear that voice line constantly. You get really annoyed with it. Sterling?
Anyone who's played Balloons TD6 has turned off the hero sounds after 2 seconds because they're so annoying. Even after them making it pretty funny, it's like...
No, I like that.
Right? It's so easy for what was something that's supposed to elevate characters being something that actually annoys you with the game is really frustrating as a player and really hard to see in advance as a composer, developer, sound designer without just kind of playtesting it. See, what plays the most often in an average session, right? When you record everything, you kind of they all feel equal. They're all the same length, right? But it really needs to match up with the in-game events because it can become very frustrating to a player to hear the same sounds over and over again. So I know that's not nearly as much about how to do dialogue right, but more how to avoid doing dialogue wrong, which is what I know a lot more of. Ian?
you ever fight someone playing Nest in Smash Brothers?
Yeah, that's a great example. Ness does not have nearly as many voice lines as he should.
Yeah.
Because-
for a character where they use the specials as much as they do.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they do actually have multiple takes for like each different attack.
Maybe the newest one.
I think they do, but here's the real point of why it's like that. They didn't in Smash 64.
Yeah.
And his kit hasn't changed since then. So they kind of have to keep it. But I'm pretty sure like in everything past Brawl, there are like multiple takes of at least 2 of like PK Fire, PK Thunder, etc. That's a really good example. Thank you. How often do you use it? That's kind of the important part. How does dialogue better convey information about the game to the player? Who here has like played or seen Persona 5? All right, good amount. So Morgana, right? Sometimes Morgana is helpful and useful, and sometimes Morgana is not very useful. Fi Skyward Sword is another great example. Both of those, I would argue, are characters that have really good character moments that a lot of people leave those games not liking because of the tutorials that got shoved into them, because they aren't helpful and they aren't useful. And I think you've been watching this presentation too long. Go outside and come back later, right? Like, dialogue can be used in a way that just frustrates the player just by virtue of it's trying to convey information about the game, but it doesn't. Versus where, say in a game that I can't think of right now, but I'm certain this has been done before, of like, Overwatch, there you go. Like the I need healing voice line, just generically from any character, or TF2, or pick your hero shooter, right? That's a good voice line. It doesn't matter that it's the same every time, because ultimately it means the same thing every time, which is that, I actually have to do something about this. I want it to be a loud sound because I want to actually hear it, because as my team's healer, I want to actually be able to go and heal you because I'm the healer. Or other various shooter examples. I only have like 80 hours in Overwatch, so. And then finally, this is more of just like a narrative thing for dialogue, being when is it worth it to, Persona 5 full animated pre-rendered cutscene for your 3D games versus the characters standing and talking between a bunch of poses and a chat box and engine versus I'm kind of just playing the game and people are talking in my ear and there are subtitles. Most shooters have the last one. Just Cause 3, I think, did a good version of it. Any of the Metal Gears, very famously, have that whole chat screen that they use it to kind of give that its own importance. Yeah, I have less to say about dialogue because I'm not an expert on that, but I hope that just thinking about it has kind of jogged your minds on how to do it right and how to do it wrong, if you so choose to do it. All right, big one. It's juice time, guys. Juice. This is why we do it. This is why you do audio design in your game. Audio makes your game from good to great, but like this is how it actually does it. Juice is just it's the act of taking your sound effects and then tying them to the animations in a way that responds to the player so effectively that, yes, Anthony, Fortnite, that responds to the player. I should have got a GIF up here so you could just watch it. To make the player feedback feel good. Like in Celeste, I press the dash button and there's this big flashy visual effect. There's a screen shake that comes with it. The character flashes. There's the trail of after images of what you happen. There's a haptic sent to controller if you're playing on one that. There's one of 3 sound effects that plays that are all similar enough that they all sound the same, but there are actually 3 of them. If you didn't know that, go look at the FMod project. All of that comes together to make a really, really tight feeling dash. As the audio designer, you are kind of last in the process of this. You can ask Max. It's way easier to time a sound effect to an animation than to tell them to re-time an animation to my sound effect. If I did that, they'd beat the crap out of me. And you just have a lot more flexibility with tools like Audacity to retime that stuff. But it's something that everyone on your team has to think of, especially your programmer, but also the audio person, because you want these sounds to really match the impact. Like if there is, a guy swinging an axe and there's one frame that's like right at the top and it has this big kind of VFX sparkle on it where it's like, now's the time to input the thing that makes it do a combo. If I put a little on that, then that feels better to the player. I want to look at every aspect of my animation in game and make sure the sound touches all of that. Fortnite. I put Fortnite on here because Anthony told me to put Fortnite on here. But Fortnite and most other shooter games have this cool feature. Whenever you're getting shot from any direction, there's this little on-screen kind of middle radial compass that has like this outline and then an arrow kind of pointing to where you got shot, and then the sound is panned in that place. If the sound was just panned in that place, that's not enough to really tell you where it's coming from because you only have 2 speakers and you don't know if it's in front or behind you. But it's accompanied by this on-screen visual effect to give the player immediate feedback. Oh shoot, he's right behind me. Crank 290s and we're good. Did I use that right, Anthony? Yeah. All right, great. I don't play shooters. Slime Rancher I have on here as a really good example for just really responsive UI. When you suck in a slime with the little suction thing, does it have a name? You know if that has a name? It's just a vacuum gun or something. But it feels really good. It has a really satisfying like suction sound when you're trying to suck on the Gordo slimes and they get stuck in there. It's got that really satisfying like you know, it sounds like a vacuum and it feels correct. The animation complements that. All of the pieces work together to make that effect happen. Smash Ultimate, I thought I put the frame for that. Did I put it on here? Yeah, that frame. Like, they added this to Ultimate, and when it was in the trailers for the first time in 2016, everybody lost their minds, right? It's such a cool moment that happens right before you win a match or before the game is convinced that you will win a match. Sometimes you can just kind of DI out of it, but whatever. And the only reason this moment feels so good is because of all of the VFX. The camera zoom, the hit stun, the animation slowing down to really emphasize his keyframe, and like just this iconic just sound that really sells this whole moment. Like we know exactly what sound I'm talking about, right? This like
I can hear that.
right? I could have gotten a GIF for this. I could have gone and found an image for this, but I don't have to because the sound effect is crafted so well that you can imagine it anyways. That's what good juice audio feels like. For moments that are supposed to be iconic and memorable, the sound is iconic and memorable. For moments that are not that important, the sound is not that important. For moments that are kind of funny, the sound is kind of funny. You want the sound to match the tone and expectation of the art, animation, VFX, gameplay that it is meant to be matching. That's probably the most concise I've ever said that. I've been rambling the rest of the day. Yeah, right? All right. Juice is really cool. Hat in Time is a game I really like. It's really good. All of the animations are really bouncy and juicy, but moreover, all of the sound effects are meant to kind of accentuate that action. It's a much more cartoony styled game than the other one, which is kind of why I picked it for this. And generally the less real something is, the more it can kind of lean into this. But like you can make a very like juicy, feel good kind of system in a game with a more realistic style. Titanfall 2 comes to mind a lot. That game has movement out the wazoo. It's crazy. And you hear every wall slide and bounce and all that, and that's juice. They think about all of that, all of this with the sounds to help make that. You might have not noticed the sounds before, but they're there. And that's what good sound is. Good audio probably doesn't get noticed unless you're listening for it, which sucks, but that's what it's here for, because they are video games. The video does come first. All right. Oh my god, I actually didn't rush through them all. So I have a demo to show you all made by my good friend Thomas Gelman. He's pretty awesome. He has this emote in the server if you want to use this emote. But he did a presentation on Juice from his... please say Godot is installed on this. Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because we use this for all the workshops. Thank goodness.
It may not be your version.
Oh, this is a 4.5. It'll be fine.
It's not 4.5, it's 4.4.1. Or wait, no, yes, yeah, because it says 4.5 in
It will be fine.
it. It was the newest stable version.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. But basically, he made this whole presentation, of which we are somewhat skipping directly to the end of. And I know that the... Oh, wait. This is plugged in, right, Max? I keep forgetting this is not my laptop. If it's not plugged in, it'll lag a lot. Because Godot is funny like that on my laptop when it's not plugged in. But... if we do this... I can show you... what Tommy was cooking. And he was cooking. Alright, so this little guy, right? Oh, it's so laggy on this computer. So, Thomas made this little guy. He's a very Celeste controller guy. He's got a dash. He's got all this stuff. But he has all these sound effects and the screen shake. If we turn all these off, it's kind of just Godot Square walking around, right? Like, this is way less interesting to me, the player, because you can't feel anything happening. Like, all the funny coyote time is still there. All of the input buffering is still there. If I do input buffering still there. Like, for context, I'm pressing the button now, and it still jumps the moment the first frame it gets to the ground. That's great. That's programming stuff, not what I care about.
That's in the sample project too.
It's in the sample project. But basically, what Thomas is showing off, you slowly add these effects back in, and it really changes the way that you feel about them. He's got this little, like, he kind of jiggles back and forth. I wanted to add more audio examples to this, to have more audio in this specifically, just to talk about audio and not just game feel. If we add the screen shake back in, you could tell that the screen shake helps a lot, but like, I can almost hear this screen shake of like, it feels like there's supposed to be this kind of lower pitch sound to it. And that's honestly a real phenomenon when you are if you're at a concert and there is a giant subwoofer, your eyes will actually vibrate. This is like a real thing. As a band kid, I can testify. I have known tuba players who memorize all their music because when they are playing the tuba, the pitch is so low that their eyes will vibrate enough that they cannot read the music anymore because their eyes are vibrating. That's a real thing. And so good juice means that you complement that sound well. And this is not a slight to my good friend Thomas because he did make this very quickly. But do these sounds fully accentuate that action? I'm not sure. I think that as just like a constructive criticism for this, I think these footsteps are really loud. I think this dash sound is not really as intense as it could be. And I think this landing sound is a little more intense. Now, if we notice, are all these footsteps the same, or did he randomize the pitch? I think there's just two. I think there's just two footsteps and they're all the same. Yeah, they're just alternates. That was one thing I meant to mention on the SFX slide. I didn't. One thing that you could do that's really easy is you could randomize the pitch of sound effects. Fmod has a really good built-in way to say, hey, randomize it up to X semitones in either direction. Really, really good. Where I just say, like, I put in a sound and I say, hey, you can go up or down anywhere between, 0 and 200 cents. That's great. Really helps everything not be the same. You apply that on top of having multiple takes of the same sound that are slightly different. You get something that doesn't sound like it actually was recorded a million times. You just get something that sounds correct, which is ultimately the goal. A lot of the things with Juice is less is more, which I think was on the slides, but I didn't talk about nearly as much. Less is more is really important. Having sound that subtly complements subtle actions like walking, is again about the matching. Like walking is something that you'll do in a game all the time. It should be very background, but it should be there. It should be so close to not being present that you almost don't notice it, but at the back of your brain, you actually do. And it's honestly one of the hardest parts of doing this mixing is that as the designer, sometimes you get worried. It's like, I can't even really hear this anymore. Does it matter that it's there? The answer is yes, it does matter. Playtesters will tell you that they notice it. They won't notice it, but they'll feel the difference. Yeah, Anthony.
I want to say this for multiplayer games.
Speak up.
Yeah, for multiplayer games, you want the walking to be more noticeable.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of game developers like make it too quiet, and that's a problem for you.
But even then, that's different.
Yeah.
It's not that I want my walking sounds to be loud. I want enemy walking sounds to be loud. And that goes more over to how important is this to sound? Is it important for me to know that I'm walking? No, I'm holding W or the left stick or whatever. Is it important to know that there's an enemy walking? Yes, very. This is a battle royale game. Give that one more weight than my footsteps. I don't care that I'm walking. You get the surface terrain in there, but like, I don't know if Fortnite does this, because I don't know if Hours in Fortnite, but like other shooters will specifically, like Overwatch has even like more visual effects that other people have footsteps than just their footsteps on your client, of just like indicators that people are there, of just like there was a sound there. What was that? What did I just hear? More with like the bullet direction indicator UI of like there is sound somewhere. Where is this? Tied to that. Yeah. That's the juice example from this. I don't have this published because Thomas doesn't have this published, and I'm not going to publish it until he publishes it because I just stole it from him. But it's a cool enough demo to kind of explain what I'm saying of like, you really need to, like, sound effects make this feel a lot more immersive. But if there was music playing over this, do these sound effects all still work? If this guy was not a Godot head, but actually a Marine from, you know, like, if this guy was like a full military 2D platformer army guy, are these sound effects still right? All right, great, scratch that. Now it's like, you know, a princess with the floaty jump dress from Mario Wonder. Okay, now scratch that. What if it's a random guy who's a leopard in a leopard-based platform? Like, are these sound effects the right sound effects for that guy? No. All things to consider. I'm kind of going on a little of a tangent of this because I wanted more sound effects for this. But the sound effects are important for making the action feel responsive and good. That is all I have directly for this. We have a few options for the last half hour. We either can all break off into individual things and you all can make music or sound design or implement various things in Godot. You can do that and also maybe follow me do some of that. You can write music and maybe follow me do music. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions of what the room wants. Nobody feels super strongly. Or we can end early. No, we're not gonna end early. Anthony, can I show off my own music? All right, maybe we'll show off some Fmod stuff. I got the feeling. Oh, we're on this laptop. No, I can't.
You can, I think.
We can end the recording.